Hi, Jessica here from the Literacy Loft, and this video is part of the 12 Days of Literacy, an email series that is going out in the month of December. And I wanted to share with you one of my favorite books to use in December in the classroom, and it's called When Santa Was a Baby. So this book I found a few years ago, and it has since become one of my staples in the classroom of December. I'm going to share with you some of the writing strategies or activities that you could use with this book during either the last couple of weeks before school gets out, and I've done it the day before we get off for winter break because it's very engaging and you want to see the kids excited about writing. This activity is for you. So all that I did, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about the book. So this book is called When Santa Was a Baby, and basically it is just a I almost think of it like a fractured fairy tale, but kind of reverse, because it tells like the backstory of Santa, like when he was a baby and growing up. And what I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, is the authors kind of go back in time and talk about like pull some of those things in that we already know about Santa Claus, and pulls them into like how it wove into his childhood or when he was a baby. So I'm going to talk about those in just a minute, but I just want to also let you see some of the beautiful illustrations throughout the book. And, I turned to the perfect page because this one always gets a lot of giggles. So you can see Santa, that's baby Santa with his parents. And of course, when he's little, he loves the color red. He loves fire trucks. So a lot of the things characterization that we already know about Santa today is kind of woven throughout the book. So, and then it talks about how he grows up and pursues his childhood dream of moving to the North Pole and hiring a bunch of elves to build a toy workshop, and super cute. So one of the reasons I love this is because I've taught fourth grade forever, and in fourth grade, one of the things that we talked about, part of the standards, are tall tales. So there's kind of that tall tale element to this. And the other thing is that it's almost, like I said, it's almost like a fractured fairy tale. However, I would be very careful about using that term in a third, fourth, or fifth grade classroom, because we could have some little broken hearts, because many of our students still believe that Santa brings the gifts every Christmas Eve. So we definitely want to be careful of that. And so I wouldn't necessarily call it a fairy tale. I might say legend. And actually, I'm not even sure exactly what you would call this, but I'm thinking that that's close enough. So, one of the things that I would do is, first of all, just kind of read the book to them first. Like, just read the book, enjoy the story, giggle and laugh with your students, enjoy it. And then you can share kind of what your goal is for writing. So right now I'm going to share with you what our goal would be with the writing activity that goes with this book. So inside this free download, it's free for you, you have a few different choices or options. And I always made several copies of, or not several, but a lot of copies of like a class set of each one. You could always use whatever you don't use next year. That was kind of always my philosophy. So, because I wanted students to have a choice. So your choices are, for the students, would be When Frosty Was a Baby, When Rudolph Was a Baby, and then this one doesn't really have to do with characters like that, but it just kind of goes right along with it. What really happens at Santa's workshop? So, one of the main things that kind of made me think about this book that I wanted to kind of bring into writing is that whole idea of a fractured fairy tale is you're taking these elements of things that we already know and you're creating your own story. So students are taking these characters that they already know and have heard about since they were little, but they're writing their own stories. So some of the work's already done for them, and they just kind of have room to be creative and create these own like backstories. So this idea could also be used with other stories that don't even have to do with Christmas, but I'm not going to go there right now. So, sorry, my screen cut off. Okay. So, I love, as you can see, I have some student samples because I could not, I can't, because they're so precious after they're done. And what you'll find, or I found, hopefully you find it as well, is that students would say, I would give students a choice and just kind of put the stacks on the table and tell them it's your choice. You can do Frosty, Rudolph, or you can talk about what really happens at Santa's workshop. So what I found is that students got so excited about doing this that they would write one story and they would want to, okay, now can I do Rudolph? Now can I write about Santa's workshop? And of course I'm like, of course you can. But what was really cool about that is like I've never seen such excitement about writing. Well, that's a very strong statement, but it's one of those times where you're watching your students get really excited about it. And I didn't take it for a grade. I didn't review it and mark up all the grammar mistakes that they made. I just let them enjoy writing. And so that's what I hope that this activity provides for you and your students, is just when you have like the week before you get out of break. A lot of times during the middle of the school, the mid-year, we had mid-year assessments. So like right before students are supposed to go on winter break, they're taking all these assessments and mid-year tests. And, as a teacher, you're like, I hope they're making gains. It's December. It's like, there's halfway point. They're supposed to be, growing and growing. It's a very nice way to just let students enjoy writing and get excited about it. And I've also had the experience of, which I'm sure you probably have as well, of students that maybe don't celebrate the holidays or maybe don't participate. So one of the things that I just always kind of say is like, you're not celebrating the holiday. You're taking a character that many people have heard of and know, and it's, a legend or folktale, if you want to call it that. Again, I'm sure there's a correct term that I'm definitely misspeaking about. It started raining really hard here. Hopefully you can still hear me. So, I still found that those students, they know those characters because they've heard of them, and they still kind of enjoy the activity. So the other thing, there's like a bonus little fun activity that I included is the reindeer comic strip. And actually, I want to get one that's a little bit more effort has been put into it. This is actually from a student who doesn't necessarily, and I had a very good relationship with his parents, and he does not celebrate holidays, but he really enjoyed completing this comic strip. So you can see how they just have it's got little cute clip art from Melon Heads. Love her. And then it just kind of says, or it has like the reindeers and they're in the North Pole and they're going to flight school, and it has little speech bubbles. So they kind of get to create their own little story. So I usually let them do this after they did a complete story. If they wanted to do this, they could do that. Just to kind of break it up a little bit. But I definitely made them write a story first about, Frosty or Rudolph or whatever first. So that was just a little bonus, and he really enjoyed that, and is super cute because you can see right here he wrote, "I believe I can fly," which makes me want to sing the song, but I won't do that to you. So just wanted to share that with you and just some of the student writing that came along with that. So as I was planning this out and I was thinking about, in the past, I literally have just read the book. We talked about it a lot, laughed as we read the book and kind of noticed some of the things that popped up throughout the book that were oh, he has a nose like a cherry, his mom says in the book. And so we kind of laughed about it. But I didn't really do a whole lesson or anything on it. It was just an activity to get them excited about writing and to just provide a way that they're writing in a fun way, because teaching in 4th grade, it's very test preppy, and it was one of those days where I could actually just kind of let loose and let them enjoy writing, but also just to create an atmosphere of just more relaxed. We're not worried about teaching any big standards right now. We'll be right back to that in January, but we just want to enjoy writing right now. So I can't say that enough. I feel like I've said that over and over, but I can't say it enough. But as I was planning this to share with you, I was kind of thinking about how I could, sorry, my computer logged off. I was thinking about like what else could I do to make this lesson better? One of the things that I should have done in the past and will probably do this year is helping them kind of brainstorm like how to do what this writer did with When Santa Was a Baby, how to do that in their own writing, even just to kind of get their ideas flowing. So got my chart in the background right here. What I did today is I just kind of went through the book for some of the character traits of Santa, of things that he did when he was little that match up with what we kind of characterize Santa with today. So, for example, like I kind of started over here, if you can't tell, like I wrote beginning, and of course I misspelled it because that's what I do. And so just some of the kind of character traits that are in the book, but it's describing him as a baby, but we know this real story and how that kind of plays into him as an adult. So he's soft, round, and cuddly, merry dimples. That's what his dad says. His dimples are so merry. He has a nose like a cherry, his mom said. He has a voice that rattled the windows because they were expecting this little like cute giggle. And of course he goes, ho, ho, ho. It's like this big booming voice. Of course, when he's little, he likes red the best of all the colors. And when he gets a little bit older, he has a big belly just like his dad, and his mom comments, it's like a bowl full of jelly. Sound familiar? When he's little, like one of the first Christmases, he wraps up all his presents and gives them all away. And then, of course, he has a very odd interest in chimneys, so he's constantly covered in soot and dust. And then for 1 year, he asked for a horse. So now you're kind of getting like the story, kind of getting a little bit of a retelling of the story. So hopefully that'll help you want to buy the book, which I recommend that you do if you don't have it or you can't find it in your school or public library. He asked for a horse with horns that can pull a flying sled. So his mom's like, what do you mean, like a unicorn? And how are we going to do that? And so they get him a hamster instead. And so he trained, his hamster has babies, and there's 8 hamsters plus the mom. And so he trains his hamsters to pull a matchbox with tiny presents around the house. And he, of course, names the hamsters Connor and Dancer, Donner and Vixen, all those reindeer names. And he really likes the cold weather, and he stands in front of the fridge. And, of course, there's this, like, cute little picture of him standing in front of the refrigerator with a little bum. And then he meets Eldred, this little best friend who's really small, and he loves the color green and loves to build toys. Sounds familiar. And so then it talks about later how he continued his life, went off to college, but he found that he didn't fit in, and so he followed his childhood dreams, moved to the North Pole, built a toy shop, and brought in elves and delivers toys around the world. So it kind of brought us full circle back to what Santa does today. So what I would do if I were to kind of just reflect on what I've done in the past, if I had the time, so if you have the time, that's why I'm sharing my reflections with you, is I would probably do this with my students. Probably kind of go through it quickly and maybe even have this already done, depending on if I'm going to do the second part that I'm about to say. And then the next thing that I would do is, or you could have like part of it done. So you have part of it done and then have students like help you fill in some other things that they remembered hearing. I don't suggest doing, because this is a very bad habit of mine, I don't suggest doing like all this and then a second chart that I'm about to tell you in a second. It's just too much and you're going to kind of lose your momentum. So I would definitely just kind of either have this already done or most of the way done and have students help you kind of just add other things in. And then where you kind of want to spend like most of the time, if you're going to add in this chart essence, is I would take either Rudolph or Frosty, whichever you kind of maybe feel like your students are going to be able to say more about. Probably Rudolph would be easier. Or Frosty. Doesn't matter. I would do the same thing. Just kind of list like, what do we know about Frosty? What do we know about Rudolph? What can we what characterization or what things can we add to this that we could add into the story that we write on our own. So then create the same kind of web or character web. Sorry, my computer again. Take the same kind of character web and then transfer it then they can use that as kind of like a planning for writing the actual story for Frosty or Rudolph. Again, you don't have to do this. I've done this in the past and haven't done all this. Just we read the story, enjoyed the story, laughed about it, and I sent them off on their way. And they were so happy. And I had so many students like, I want to write another one. I finished this one. Can I do another one? And I mean, they were just like writing for hours. It feels like. No, but it was really like a long time. Like they were so engaged. They worked together and kind of like talked about different things that they could say. And anytime you can create that kind of atmosphere in your classroom where students are excited and talking about writing, you're winning. So, speaking of winning, it's Monday night. We're watching the Eagles tonight. I'm married into the Eagle fandom. So we are doing that. And that's all I have to say about this activity. I'm just really excited to share this with you, and I hope that you're able to find some value out of this activity, even if you don't buy the book, even if you don't have the book, because I don't think it's a very well-known book, but every time I tell somebody about it, like, oh my goodness, I have to have that book, so I'm sharing it with you. But even if you don't have it or don't intend to buy it because it's, Christmas time and our money needs to go in other places, I definitely think you could still do something like this with the, just the idea. So, you could definitely kind of like have students imagine what it was like when Santa was a baby. Maybe have them write their own story about what it was like when Santa was a baby. Do like this kind of brainstorming. So whether you're probably watching this video on my blog post, either way, there's a picture of this chart. This chart's already made for you inside the blog post so that you have a copy of the chart and you can see like, you don't have to go reinvent the wheel. It's already done for you. All of the writing is a free resource. It's a free download for you. And as always, if you have any questions, you can email me at jessica@theliteracyloft.com. And I would love, love, love to see what your students come up with. So always feel free to send me pictures, tag me on Instagram, or tag me on Facebook. And I'll talk to you soon. Hope you're having a great week and Merry Christmas, and I will talk to you later.